They told us humanity was fragile, that we would never matter. But when the universe demanded we kneel, we stood taller. Chapter 1. The Whisper. It began with a whisper in the void, a signal so faint that Dr. Elena Vasquez almost dismissed it as cosmic background radiation. But something about the pattern made her pause, her coffee growing cold as she stared at the readouts from the Jupiter research station. "Computer, enhance signal and run pattern analysis," she commanded, her voice barely above a whisper in the empty laboratory. Outside the reinforced windows, Jupiter's great red spot churned like an ancient eye, watching, waiting. The computer's response chilled her to the bone. Pattern identified. Signal contains mathematical progressions suggesting artificial origin. Estimated age, 2.7 million years. Signal strength increasing exponentially. Elena's hands trembled as she reached for the emergency communication console. This wasn't just first contact. This was something far older, far more dangerous than anything humanity had imagined. The probe materialized 3 days later, emerging from hyperspace with a presence that made every sensor on the Jupiter station scream warnings. It was beautiful in its terrible perfection. A crystalline structure the size of Manhattan, pulsing with energies that bent space around it like a lens. When it spoke, its voice reached every communication device in the solar system simultaneously. "Greetings, young civilization. We are the architects of order. Your species has been evaluated." The words that followed would haunt humanity's dreams for generations. Assessment complete. Growth rate excessive. Technological advancement unstable. Resource consumption unsustainable. Conclusion. Pruning required. Countdown initiated. 6 solar rotations remain. President Chen's face was ashen as she addressed the emergency session of the United Earth Council. The holographic display showed the probe's position, a gleaming threat hanging in space like a sword over humanity's neck. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to announce, "we are not the first. Our xenoarchaeologists have identified 17 civilizations within a 50-light-year radius that simply disappeared. All at the height of their technological development. All within the last 3 million years." The silence in the council chamber was deafening. Finally, Ambassador Kowalski from the Mars colonies spoke. "What are our options?" Chen's laugh was bitter. "According to the probe's transmission, we have 3 choices. Accept termination gracefully, attempt evacuation beyond their monitoring range, approximately 100 light-years, or resist and face immediate annihilation." "And the 4th option?" asked General Morrison, his weathered face grim. "The 4th option," Chen replied, "is the one they didn't offer. We fight." Chapter 2. The Gathering Storm. The next 72 hours transformed human civilization. Every space-capable vessel was recalled, every shipyard converted to military production. The Luna construction platforms, previously building luxury cruise ships, now churned out frigates with hulls of hardened steel and desperate innovation. Commander Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the ragtag fleet assemble. Cargo haulers retrofitted with missile pods. Mining vessels armed with industrial lasers. Even the old generation ships, those ancient vessels that had carried the first colonists to Mars and Europa, were being stripped down and rebuilt as fighting platforms. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, "the fleet count stands at 847 vessels. Most are civilian conversions, but the Mars Defense Corps has contributed 12 proper warships." Webb nodded grimly. Against an enemy that had pruned 17 civilizations, their improvised armada looked pitiful. But it was what they had. The strategy was simple in its desperation. Swarm the probe with everything they could throw at it, hoping sheer numbers could overwhelm whatever defenses the architects had installed. It was David facing Goliath, except David had 847 slingshots and the stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Dr. Raj Patel worked frantically in his laboratory aboard Ceres Station, trying to understand the physics behind the probe's technology. The energy readings made no sense. The probe seemed to be drawing power from quantum fluctuations in space itself, tapping into the zero-point field that physicists had theorized but never successfully harnessed. "If we could disrupt their power source," he muttered to his AI assistant, "create some kind of quantum interference." "The probability of success remains minimal," the AI replied in its maddeningly calm voice. "Their technology appears to be approximately 2.7 million years ahead of our current capabilities." "Since when has probability stopped humans from trying the impossible?" Raj shot back, his fingers flying over the holographic interface as he designed what would later be called the quantum disruptor, humanity's first and most desperate gambit. Chapter 3. The Longest Day. The attack began at 0600 hours, Sol Standard Time. Every human being in the solar system watched as their fleet approached the probe, a cloud of metal and determination against the perfect, terrible beauty of architect technology. Webb's voice echoed across every ship. This is it, people. They think we're fragile. They think we're nothing. Today, we show them what fragile really means. Fragile means we have nothing left to lose. Fragile means we fight harder than anything else in this universe. All ships, attack pattern Delta, make them remember us. The probe's response was swift and terrible. Beams of coherent energy lanced out, turning ships into expanding clouds of plasma. The Yorktown, a converted cargo vessel crewed by volunteers from Earth's asteroid mining guild, simply ceased to exist. The New Horizons, carrying a crew of scientists who had volunteered for combat duty, lasted long enough to fire a single salvo before joining the growing graveyard of human ambition. But humanity had learned something in their brief, violent expansion across the solar system. They were very, very good at fighting when their backs were against the wall. The frigates came in low and fast, using Jupiter's gravity well to accelerate beyond safe parameters. The Retribution, its hull already glowing from atmospheric friction, managed to get within 50 kilometers of the probe before the quantum disruptor activated. Space itself seemed to scream. The probe's perfect crystalline structure flickered, its energy fields wavering as Dr. Patel's impossible device tore at the quantum foundations of its power source. For 17 seconds, 17 precious seconds, the architect technology faltered. In those 17 seconds, 312 human vessels opened fire with everything they had. Nuclear warheads, kinetic penetrators, mining charges, even a repurposed asteroid tugger that rammed itself into the probe's hull at significant fraction of light speed. When the light faded and the sensors cleared, the probe was gone. Destroyed. The first architect construct to fall in 2.7 million years had been brought down by a species they had dismissed as fragile. The celebration lasted exactly 4 hours and 23 minutes. Chapter 4. The Real War Begins. The second transmission came as humanity was still counting their dead and celebrating their impossible victory. This time, it wasn't from a single probe. This time, it came from everywhere at once, from the direction of every star system within 100 light years. Interesting. Evaluation revision required. New classification. Invasive species. Priority elevated to maximum. Countdown reset. 6 cycles remain, then you will not exist. Admiral Chen, promoted from president to supreme military commander in the aftermath of the probe's destruction, stared at the tactical display showing incoming signatures. Hundreds of them. Thousands. The architects weren't sending another probe. They were sending a fleet that had taken 3 million years to perfect the art of civilizational extinction. Estimated time to arrival? She asked, though she dreaded the answer. 17 days, came the reply from her tactical officer. Ma'am, the energy readings, each ship registers as more powerful than the probe we just destroyed. Chen closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her shoulders. When she opened them again, there was fire in her gaze. Send word to every colony, every station, every human settlement in this system. We have 17 days to build the impossible. Again. What followed was perhaps the greatest mobilization in human history. The asteroid belt became a massive mining operation, stripping entire rocks down to provide raw materials. Mars devoted its entire industrial capacity to shipbuilding, working around the clock as the red planet's forges burned bright enough to be seen from Earth. The colonies of Europa and Enceladus contributed their expertise in underwater construction, designing vessels that could operate in the crushing depths of gas giant atmospheres. Titan's chemical plants worked overtime, producing the exotic fuels needed for humanity's newest weapon, the reality anchor. Dr. Vasquez, the same woman who had first detected the architect signal, worked with a team of Earth's brightest minds to understand what they were truly facing. The answer was more terrifying than anyone had imagined. They're not just using advanced technology, she explained to the Emergency Science Council. They're using technology that operates on different physical laws. Their ships exist partially outside our reality, making them nearly invulnerable to conventional attack. Nearly invulnerable, repeated Dr. Chen, the Admiral's sister and head of theoretical physics at MIT. But not completely? That's where it gets interesting, Elena continued, bringing up her latest findings. When they engage with our reality, when they fire weapons or use their gravity manipulation, they have to become fully real for microseconds at a time. If we could predict those moments. We could hit them when they're vulnerable, finished Doctor Chen. How do we predict quantum uncertainty? The answer came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Kira Nova 7, a combat pilot whose reflexes had been enhanced through experimental cybernetic implants. During the probe battle, she had demonstrated an uncanny ability to anticipate energy weapon discharge, dodging attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. It's not prediction, Kira explained to the assembled scientists and military leaders. It's feeling. The quantum field fluctuations, they create a kind of pressure wave in space-time. My implants can detect it, but only for a few milliseconds before they fire. Admiral Chen leaned forward. Can we replicate this? Create a detection system? Not exactly, replied Dr. Patel, who had been working with Kira to understand her abilities. But we can do something better. We can create a symbiotic AI that links directly with a pilot's nervous system. It would process the quantum data faster than any human brain, but still need human intuition to interpret it. And so Project Echo was born, humanity's final, desperate gambit. Chapter 5. The Symbiote. The neural interface chamber was a sterile white room deep beneath Ceres Station, where the finest AI architects in human space had worked around the clock to create something unprecedented, an artificial intelligence designed not to replace human consciousness, but to merge with it. Kira Nova 7 lay on the medical table, her silver eyes reflecting the overhead lights as the final preparations were made. The AI construct, designation ASH7, existed as a quantum pattern in the specialized computer cores, waiting to be transferred into the hybrid neural pathways that had been growing in her brain for the past 6 days. You understand the risks, Doctor, Martinez said, her voice heavy with concern. The neural integration has only been tested in simulation. We don't know what the long-term effects will be on your consciousness. Kira's smile was sharp as a blade. Doc, in about 12 days there might not be any long-term to worry about. Besides, she tapped her temple where the new neural ports gleamed like silver stars. I've been half machine since the Mars incident. What's a little more integration between friends? The procedure took 8 hours. When Kira opened her eyes, they were no longer entirely human. Threads of silver light seemed to flow beneath the surface, and when she spoke, there was a subtle harmonic undertone that hadn't been there before. Integration successful, she reported, her voice carrying an odd duality. Ash and I are operational. Admiral Chen stepped forward. How do you feel? Kira paused, and for a moment her expression was profoundly alien. We feel complete. The quantum pressure streams are visible now, like currents in an ocean. We can see where they will strike before they fully transition into our reality. Can you teach others? Negative, came the reply, now clearly carrying 2 voices, Kira's and the deeper harmonic of ASH. The integration is specific to this neural architecture, but we can coordinate other pilots, guide them to the vulnerable moments. We are the spear tip, they are the spear. The architect fleet arrived ahead of schedule. Chapter 6. Reality Wars. They came not as ships, but as tears in space-time itself, wounds in reality that bled impossible energies. The first wave materialized near Neptune, their presence causing gravitational anomalies that sent the planet's moons spinning into new orbits. Kira Nova 7 stood in the command center of the UES Endurance, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. Her consciousness split between her physical body and the quantum realm where ASH processed probability cascades at light speed. Fleet status report, she called out, her voice carrying the harmonic resonance of her AI symbiote. 2,417 vessels ready for engagement, reported Captain Foster. Every human ship in the system, plus the new reality anchors. The reality anchors were humanity's answer to the architect's dimensional manipulation. Massive installations that could stabilize local spacetime, forcing the enemy ships to exist fully in baseline reality. They had taken every rare Earth element in the solar system to build, and no one was entirely sure they would work. Ash. What are you reading from the enemy formation? The AI's response came through their shared consciousness. Probability matrices indicate 0.3% chance of human victory through conventional engagement. However, detection of quantum uncertainty patterns suggests potential for cascade failure if primary command vessel is neutralized during reality transition. Kira nodded grimly. So we need to take out their flagship. Where is it? The answer came as the Architect fleet fully emerged from hyperspace. At the center of their formation was a vessel that defied description, a structure that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, its true size unknowable because it occupied space that wasn't entirely real. That's our target, Kira announced. All ships, formation echo, reality anchors, activate on my mark. What followed was a battle that human language lacks words to properly describe. The Architects didn't just fight in 3 dimensions, they fought across multiple layers of reality, their weapons striking through temporal echoes and probability streams. Human ships found themselves under attack by weapons that had fired them before they existed, or discovered they had been destroyed in alternate timelines that were slowly becoming real. But humanity had spent 3 million years learning to fight dirty. The reality anchors activated in sequence, creating pockets of stable spacetime that forced the Architect vessels to choose: retreat to their dimensional hiding places or stand and fight in baseline reality where human weapons could hurt them. They chose to fight. The battle raged across the outer solar system. Titan's skies burned as energy weapons carved through its atmosphere. Europa's ice crust cracked under gravitational stress as massive ships passed overhead. The asteroid belt became a debris field of human and Architect technology, metal and crystal tumbling together in complex orbits. Kira led humanity's finest pilots in a desperate charge toward the Architect flagship, her enhanced senses reading the quantum tides that predicted when the massive vessel would become vulnerable. But the enemy had learned from the probe's destruction. Their pattern was more complex now, harder to predict. Ash, I need a projection. When will they be fully real long enough for a strike? Processing. Pattern analysis indicates they are adapting their reality phase to our detection methods. Probability of successful prediction decreasing with each engagement cycle. That was when Kira made the decision that would save humanity and cost her everything. Ash, can you create a quantum cascade resonance? Affirmative, but the process would require complete neural integration. Warning, probability of host consciousness survival approaches 0. Kira looked around the bridge at the faces of her crew, humans she had served with, laughed with, fought alongside. Captain Foster caught her eye and nodded once, understanding passing between them without words. Do it, she said. Chapter 7, The Last Stand. The transformation was unlike anything in human experience. ASH-7, the artificial intelligence that had been humanity's partner, began to merge completely with Kira's consciousness, their quantum patterns interweaving at the most fundamental level. For a brief moment, Kira Nova 7 existed as something beyond human or machine, a hybrid consciousness that could perceive the full quantum structure of reality. Through her transformed senses, she could see the Architect flagship as it truly was, a massive construct that existed in 17 different dimensional phases simultaneously, its reality anchor points shifting according to mathematical patterns that took millions of years to develop. But patterns, no matter how complex, could be disrupted. All ships, this is Kira Nova 7, she broadcast, her voice now carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in dimensions beyond sound. I am transmitting targeting coordinates directly to your navigation systems. You will have exactly 2.7 seconds when the flagship is vulnerable. Make them count. The quantum cascade began as ASH sacrificed its processing cores one by one, burning out its quantum pathways to create a resonance wave that would force the Architect flagship into full reality for those precious few seconds. Kira felt her friend dying, its consciousness fragmenting as it gave everything to create one moment of opportunity. Thank you, ASH, she whispered as the AI's presence began to fade from her mind. Fragile, breeds, fire. Came ASH's final transmission, the words carrying all the defiance and hope that had driven humanity to this moment. The reality anchors fired in perfect synchronization, their combined output creating a gravity well that forced the Architect flagship to choose between existing fully in baseline reality or being torn apart by dimensional stress. For 2.7 seconds, the massive vessel became completely real. Every human weapon in the solar system fired at once. Nuclear warheads designed to crack asteroids. Kinetic kill vehicles traveling at significant fractions of light speed. Exotic matter bombs that had been theoretical until 17 days ago. And at the center of it all, the UES Endurance, with Kira Nova 7 at the helm, ramming her ship directly into the flagship's quantum core at velocities that turned matter into pure energy. The explosion was visible from Earth as a new star being born and dying in the space of a heartbeat. When the light faded, the Architect flagship was gone, and with it, the quantum coordination signal that had been controlling their entire fleet. Across the solar system, Architect vessels began to phase out of reality, retreating to whatever dimensional realm they called home. But before they disappeared entirely, their final transmission reached every human receiver. Assessment revision. Classification, apex predator. Status, do not engage. Warning transmitted to all Architect nodes, this species is not to be pruned, withdrawal authorized. Chapter 8, What Remains. 6 months after the battle, Admiral Chen stood in the rebuilt observation deck of Ceres Station, looking out at the debris field that had once been humanity's desperate fleet. They had won, but the cost had been staggering. Nearly half of their space-capable vessels destroyed. Colonies damaged. An entire generation of their best and brightest sacrificed to prove that humanity would not go quietly into extinction. But they had proven something else as well. Dr. Elena Vasquez approached, carrying a datapad with their latest findings. The quantum resonance patterns from the battle have had interesting effects, she reported. We're detecting signals from other species, civilizations that went into hiding when the Architects first appeared. They're coming out now, sending messages of congratulation and alliance requests. How many? 47 so far, and the number keeps growing. It seems the galaxy has been waiting 3 million years for someone to bloody the Architect's nose. Chen nodded slowly. And Kira? Elena's expression grew complicated. She's alive. The neural integration process left her changed. She claims she can still feel ASH's presence sometimes, like an echo in her mind. The doctors say her brain patterns show permanent alterations, but she seems stable. She's requested assignment to the new Deep Space Reconnaissance Division. Approved, Chen said immediately. After what she's done, she can have any assignment she wants. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the salvage ships work to recover what could be saved from the battle. Finally, Elena spoke again. The other species are asking what we want in return for showing them that the Architects could be defeated. Chen's smile was sharp. Tell them we want what we've always wanted. To be left alone to grow and explore and make our own mistakes. And if anyone tries to prune another species. She gestured toward the debris field. Well, they've seen what happens to gardeners who get too confident. Chapter 9. The New Galaxy. 2 years later, Kira Nova 7 stood on the bridge of the UES Pioneer, humanity's first faster-than-light vessel, built using technology shared by their new galactic allies. Her eyes still carried those threads of silver light, and sometimes crew members swore they could hear 2 voices when she spoke. Captain, reported her communications officer, we're receiving a distress signal from the Kepler 442 system. It's the Valian Republic. They're under attack by an unknown force. Kira studied the tactical display, her enhanced senses reading patterns in the data that normal humans would miss. Unknown force, or are the Architects back? Analysis suggests neither, ma'am. Energy signatures are consistent with a species called the Harvester Collective. According to our xenobiological database, they're a post-biological civilization that converts organic matter into computational substrate. So they want to turn the Valians into computer parts. Kira's voice carried a familiar harmonic as ASH's echo resonated through her words. Well, we can't have that. Set course for Kepler 442, maximum burn, and send a message to Earth. Tell them we might need backup. Message to send, Captain? Kira's smile was sharp and warm at the same time, carrying all the contradiction that made humanity so dangerous to those who underestimated them. Tell them that the galaxy's newest apex predators have found someone else who needs to learn about respecting other people's right to exist. As the Pioneer jumped to faster-than-light speed, its wake rippled through dimensions that the Architects had once thought they controlled. Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched and remembered the lesson humanity had taught, that sometimes the most dangerous species was the one everyone thought was too fragile to matter. The Harvester Collective would learn this lesson soon enough. And in the deepest reaches of space, in dimensions beyond normal reality, the Architects maintained their watch and sent out a new message to all their kind. The fragile ones have become something else. Do not engage. Do not provoke. Do not prune. They burn too bright. Epilogue. The fire spreads. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now director of the Galactic Contact Initiative, stood before the United Earth Assembly 5 years after the Architect War. Behind her, a holographic display showed the current state of the galaxy. Dozens of civilizations emerging from hiding, trade routes opening, and in 17 different sectors, human ships standing guard over species that had been marked for extinction by forces that thought themselves gods. The hegemony of iron learned last month that humanity doesn't appreciate slavers, she reported to the assembled delegates. The Void Cult discovered 2 months ago that we take a dim view of species that eat sentient beings, and just this week, the architects themselves sent an interesting message. She activated a new hologram, the familiar crystalline beauty of an architect probe, but smaller somehow, less imposing. They're requesting trade negotiations. It seems that 3 million years of pruning civilizations has left them with a serious cultural stagnation problem. They want to learn from us about art, about music, about the kind of chaotic creativity that comes from being, in their words, beautifully, dangerously fragile. The assembly erupted in laughter, not the bitter laugh of desperate survivors, but the warm laughter of a species that had found its place in the universe. "So what's our response?" asked Delegate Morrison, the general's daughter who had inherited her father's practical nature. Elena's smile carried echoes of Kira Nova 7's defiant grin, of Admiral Chen's determination, of every human who had ever looked at impossible odds and decided to fight anyway. "We tell them the same thing we tell everyone now," she said. "Treat others with respect, help those who need help, and never, ever assume that fragile means weak, because we are humanity. We are fragile. And fragile." She paused, letting ASH's echo carry through her words. Fragile breeds fire. Outside the assembly hall, Earth turned in its orbit around a star that had watched the birth of something new in the galaxy, a species that had turned their greatest weakness into their most terrifying strength. And across the cosmos, in 1,000 systems where 1,000 different civilizations were learning to stand up for themselves, the lesson burned bright. When the universe demands you kneel, stand taller. When they call you fragile, burn brighter. And when they think you don't matter, prove them wrong with fire. The end. If this story made you proud to be human, remember, we are all fragile, and that's exactly what makes us strong. The universe is vast and often cold, but it has never seen anything quite like the fire that burns in the hearts of those who refuse to surrender. We are humanity, we are fragile, and we are magnificent.